You have too many interests, and every career quiz you've ever taken has told you to pick one lane, focus, specialize, commit. But what if your brain wasn't built for lanes? What if the thing you thought was confusion was actually your architecture? Let me describe something. You start learning something new, guitar, coding, pottery, doesn't matter. For 3 weeks, you're obsessed. You think about it in the shower. You watch videos at 2 a.m. Then, one morning, nothing. The spark is gone, and you move on to the next thing. People call this lack of discipline. Your parents call it wasted potential. You call it failure. But here's what's actually happening in your brain. Your anterior cingulate cortex, the part of your brain responsible for detecting novelty, has an unusually high activation threshold. Translation? You don't just enjoy new things, you need them to feel alive. Psychologists call this trait high openness to experience. It's one of the big 5 personality dimensions. And if you score high on it, your dopamine system rewards exploration more than exploitation. Most people are wired to find one good thing and mine it deeply. You're wired to keep searching, not because you're broken, because your brain is optimized for pattern recognition across domains. So here's the reframe. You don't have a focus problem, you have a model problem. You're trying to build a T-shaped career in an M-shaped brain. The T-shaped model says go deep in one thing, stay broad in others. It works beautifully for linear thinkers. But you're not linear, you're intersectional. Your value doesn't come from depth in one well, it comes from bridges between islands. And the world is starting to catch up. Because the most interesting problems today, climate tech, AI ethics, behavioral health, they don't live in one domain. They live in the margins, where psychology meets technology, where design meets neuroscience, where art meets systems thinking. That's M-shaped territory, and you're already standing in it. Let's talk about why this happens. There's a concept in cognitive science called latent inhibition. It's your brain's ability to ignore stimuli it has seen before. Most people have high latent inhibition. They can tune out the irrelevant and focus on the task. But people with low latent inhibition, they notice everything. The pattern in the brick wall, the shift in someone's tone, the connection between two unrelated ideas. Researchers have found that low latent inhibition is common in 2 groups, highly creative people and people with schizophrenia. The difference? IQ and emotional regulation. If you can manage the flood of input, you become a connector. If you can't, it becomes noise. This is why you feel overstimulated in jobs that ask you to do the same thing every day. Your brain isn't wired to filter, it's wired to synthesize, and synthesis requires variety. So, how do you build a career around this? Here's the M-shaped framework. 5 principles, all grounded in how your brain actually works. Number 1, cluster, don't abandon. When you lose interest in something, don't delete it, cluster it. Your interests aren't random. They form constellations. Maybe you loved graphic design, then UX writing, then behavioral psychology. That's not 3 separate interests. That's one cluster. How humans interact with information. Neuroscience shows that memory works through associative networks. The more connections between nodes, the stronger the retrieval. So when you connect your past interests, you're not starting over, you're compounding. Number 2, build a through line, not a timeline. Stop trying to explain your resume chronologically. Start explaining it thematically. What's the question you keep asking in different forms? What's the itch you keep trying to scratch? For some people, it's how do we make complexity simple? For others, it's how do we make people feel less alone? That question becomes your through line. And every pivot you've made, it's just a new angle on the same question. This is called narrative identity theory in psychology. The stories we tell about ourselves shape our sense of coherence. When you find your through line, your chaos becomes a plot. Number 3, monetize the margins. The middle of every field is crowded. The margins are wide open. You don't need to be the best designer or the best psychologist. You need to be the person who understands both, because that intersection, design psychology, is rare, and rarity creates value. Economists call this skill stacking. Psychologists call it integrative complexity. Your brain is already doing this naturally. Now you just need to position it. Number 4, rotate, don't burn out. Here's the secret most people miss. You don't need to do one thing forever. You need to do one thing at a time in cycles. Spend 6 months deep in writing, 3 months learning to code, 4 months building a product, then return to writing with new tools. This mirrors how the brain consolidates learning. It's called interleaving. When you rotate between skills, you don't just avoid burnout, you improve faster than people who grind one thing, because your brain makes connections during the breaks. Number 5, create a portfolio identity. Stop looking for the perfect job title. Start building a portfolio identity. You're not a designer or a writer or a strategist. You're someone who solves problems using design, writing, and strategy. Psychologist Herminia Ibarra calls this a working identity. It's fluid, it evolves, and it's held together not by a role, but by your cognitive fingerprint, the unique way you see and solve problems. Let's bring it all together. Imagine your career as a mountain range, not one peak, multiple peaks, connected by ridges. Each peak is a skill, a project, a season of focus. The ridges? Those are your transfer insights, the things you learned in one domain that unlock another. Most people try to climb one mountain their whole life. You're building a range, and the view from up there? It's different. You see patterns no one else sees. You solve problems no one else can name. Not because you're scattered, because you're synthesized. You were never supposed to fit in a lane. Lanes are for cars. You're not a car. You're a cartographer, mapping territory between worlds. And the future doesn't need more specialists. It needs more translators, more connectors, more people who can hold 2 ideas in their head and find the third. That's you. Not in spite of your many interests, because of them. So stop apologizing and start building your range.